everybody. Everybody is well. Welcome to the Boost. Honored to be here with you again. Thanks so much for joining us. We're talking about this idea. Yesterday we left off discussing this unique practice. You have to pretend that you're leaving Egypt, even though you're not leaving Egypt. In the Passover Seder. And why do we do that for? Where we left it off yesterday was because God was giving you the secret to freedom and the night of freedom. Passover is a night that celebrates freedom, not just the freedom from Egypt, but the freedom from each of our own Egypts. In Hebrew, the word Egypt is Mitzrayim, which is the same word for Meitzar, which is constrained. The story of Passover isn't just the story of the Jews leaving Egypt, it's the story of every one of us who feels constrained. Constrained means I was once, or I don't know how to. Constrained means I don't know how to break out of my routine. How do I start that business? How do I develop that relationship? How do I live with more joy? How do I tap into depth? That's called constrained. I was on yesterday with somebody whose family member is suffering from probably the beginnings of an addiction. I was explaining to them that once you get into the zone, you can't take this stuff personally. They start to get constrained. It starts to become harder and harder. So if you look at it from your perspective, that's not really connected to this behavior, you're not going to get it. Because in your world, just stop. Because you live in a freer place with regard to this particular thing. And they don't. And so you see, can you imagine sitting around at a Passover Seder pretending like you left Egypt, even though deep down you know you didn't leave Egypt, but you gotta sort of pretend-ish, and you do things, and you drink wine, and you eat the matzah, and some people put on, outfits, and they really build it up. Now in the back of your mind, you didn't leave Egypt, right? It could be Westchester, it's not Egypt, right? You could be sitting in Texas, right? You're nowhere near Egypt. But you're still doing it, and you're still pretending to live this way, even for a few hours, because that's what the deal is. And so your brain's like, what are we doing? We didn't leave Egypt. But your voice says, this is the rule. This is the obligation. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Let's lean when we drink our wine. Let's eat the bread that they ate when they left. Let's eat the bitter herbs so that we can sort of feel the suffering. Let's tell the story. Let's pretend. And if you're all in at that moment, now you don't feel like you left Egypt, but you're not you. You're a different version of you. You're somewhere in between. Probably much closer to where you were than the one who left Egypt, but there's two concentric circles. There's you, and then there's leaving Egypt. And you're somewhere, if you're doing it right, in the middle. And what this practice is teaching us is that the path to freedom is to act as if you are somebody that you're not. That's the secret. Act as if. 3 words. I promised you yesterday 3 words. I didn't promise, but act as if. There is you. Then there's the person who you maybe aspire or contains values that you don't have, but there's not you. In order to go from you to not you, you can't just somehow wake up and get there. Your brain doesn't know how to feel its way there, either you get forced there, times of famine, for those who have been with us, or you voluntarily go there. And that's called act as if. You pretend that you're like that. And it feels weird. You know why? Because it's different. And things that are different feel weird. Because your brain likes things that are the same. Your brain craves predictability. Because why? Because it's a product of the past. It wants nothing more than more past. So if you do something that's different, it feels different. And that feels weird because your brain interprets different as weird. Now, sometimes you're like, what? I like adventure. That's because you're choosing it. But if you're going to do something that's hard, if you're going to do something that's uncomfortable in your own little mind, there's a piece that says, this is not us, this feels weird. So a lot of people will do this and then just stop. But the pathway that we're trying to build here really is something very different. It's allowing yourself to be free from even yourself. As if you left Egypt, God says. I know you didn't leave Egypt because I'm watching. But for one night, pretend, or 2 nights if you're in America, if you're out of Israel, pretend that you did. Why? Because you're not going to really get the experience. You're not going to really be able to feel the freedom. You're not going to really be able to share the story if you're too much focused with the perspective of someone who's in the modern world. But if you can pretend that you're there, and you can pretend that you're free, and you can live in that space for a few hours, the moving into the middle of that concentric circle will give you new insights and new perspective. My rabbi taught this to me whenever I studied Bible, he said. For those who have ever studied the Bible, or ever read the Bible stories. He says, if you want to understand the Bible, and you go through a story, be in the story. Don't watch Joseph. Try to be there. Try to imagine if you were in the palace. Look over at Joseph and see him there. Try to understand Moses. Be with Abraham when he goes down to Egypt. Because if you can picture yourself being there, you'll be able to see things and ask questions and have insights and understandings that you can never otherwise. But you're not there. Act as if. Doesn't mean you have to wake up in the morning and put on a toga. Your mind. Go to a place. Use your imagination to go to a place that you're not in. Because when you get to that place, your imagination can take you places. And when you get to that place, you get to see things that you have never seen because your brain never let you see because it had other things to do when you were back where you were. My brain doesn't have time to think about what the tiles probably look like in the palace in Egypt because it's too busy worrying about my life. Only when I'm in the game of imagining being wherever Joseph is, or wherever anybody is for that matter, where King Henry is, where King David is, wherever, when I go into a space that I am not in, it gives permission, it gives my schema, my perspective, the ability to shift and allow new thoughts in, and to see things that I never saw before, because I didn't think to see them before. Which will then ultimately give me new insights and new abilities, and I can tap into, my whole world opens up. When I'm going through something, and I know in my head that I should be brave, and I know it'll be fine. I know in my mind that I'll be fine. I'll just get up and do it, or this thing will be okay, or I am good enough, or why shouldn't I try this? Or I can overcome this. I know that in my head, but every part of my body says, no, you can't. So then how do I bridge? How do I bridge the longest distance in the world from between my head and my heart? The answer is you've got to force yourself to do it, even though it doesn't feel normal to you. You got to force yourself to be able to act even though it doesn't feel right, because the feelings are going to follow something. So when your brain says, be brave, and you're walking into that room, you got to say to yourself, pretend that you're brave. But I'm not brave. Pretend you are an actor in a movie. And in that role, you have to be brave. And you got to come across as brave. And you got to make you believe behind the screen that you're brave. Act in your own life as if you are this character. Sounds weird? Yeah. Sometimes greatness is weird. At least to your mind it is. It means I gotta pretend to be someone that I'm not? Yeah. That's called growth. Growth is being somebody that you weren't. That's why it's growth. You now have a skill you didn't have before. You are now somebody that you were not. Period. When you're a little kid and you're, 3'11", and then you get older and maybe you're 5'11", you are somebody that you are not. Or were not. That's what growth is. But you can never get there until you force it. But you can't force it if you're going to wait to feel comfortable about it. Act as if. Play the character called you. Imagine as if you were in a movie called Your Life. And there's a character, you. And you get to play you in the movie called Your Life. And somebody hands you a line. Somebody hands you a script. And says, no, that's not what you say. You're like, no, I know. Like, no, in this movie you don't. People have done that, I think. I'm sure there's been based on a true story movie somewhere where the character, maybe not the direct character, but there's somebody who's playing someone's life and that person's either on set or another character or something. And I'm sure in the middle of somewhere the person's like, I would never have said that. And the director's like, yeah, thanks, appreciate your help. We're going to say that. And the person's like, no, I'm here. She's playing me in this movie, right? Like, I know. I never said that, and I never would say that. And the director's like, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for your thoughts. The fact that you're here may change in a couple of minutes. We're going to go with the line. And that person is probably watching somebody else play them in a story that's famous, saying things that they never would have said, and they never could have said. And it's probably a very weird experience. That's called acting as if. Be the director of your own life. And give yourself the lines that you never really would have said. That voice that says to you, I would never do that. Yeah, that voice. That voice is the real character in the stands telling the director not to say the line. And the director's like, no, we're going to do it the line. Picture as if you're having this conversation. And then directing you to say the line, to do the thing, to act in that way, to keep on smiling, to restrain yourself. Because that's who you want to be. That's not who you are. And there's no way you can get there unless you pretend to be. Because as soon as you pretend to do it, what ends up happening is you'll start giving your brain a lot of new connections that it never had before. As soon as you pretend to be it. Now remember, if you pretend, it's not forever. It's just temporary. So you come into your home, or you come into your office, or you come in wherever you go, and you know what you want to be like, but you just can't you pretend to be. You don't get there 100%, but you get there 50%. How you talk, how you stand, what you think about. You know you're not going to sustain it every day, but you're doing it for today. And you walk out, and after pretending to be the person you want to be, not the person you are, and your brain's got a whole new map that got created in there. that it never had before. Which means the next time you pretend to do that, it gets a little easier because your brain's like, hey, I've heard this, I've seen this side of you before. It's pretend, but your brain doesn't know that. And you do it again. And your brain's like, yeah, no, this feels pretty familiar. I know this. I know this zone that he or she goes into. Acting as if starts to bridge the head and the heart. All right, we'll talk about this. All right, everybody, have a great day. God's help, we can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.